Y'all, you're going to want to check out this episode. Think if you ran your company like a college football team. That's what we're going to talk about in this episode. It's going to be great. Desi is a high energy guy, former college football player, and he's learned how to really, really get the most out of people and help people really take their business, again, looking like a sports team and taking it to that next level, finding that gap, what's preventing you from growing and taking it to that next level. So tune in. What does it take to be a successful entrepreneur? A dangerous amount of coffee and a ton of grit. My name is Jason Tracy, and every week I interview business leaders to share their stories, life lessons, failures, and advice with you. Welcome to Coffee and Grit. Let's go. What is up? What is up? What is up? I've got a super exciting episode today. I'm so pumped up for this episode. First off, I got Desi Mayner in the studio, and this is going way back. I think this is probably episode 206 right now, and Desi was way back, episode number 2. You all know how I love going back in doing that when guests come back and going back and doing the reflection. I was listening to Desi's episode a little bit this afternoon, and just, man, I know there's so much updates, so many changes. So it's so cool to go back and to kind of reflect the life of an entrepreneur and how you pivot, how you make changes, and then what happens with your growth. So I'm really super excited to dive into that. But I just gotta say, man, just making the full intro for Desi, it's the people that come along, and I've had, so many people, different people in my life that come along and like change your perspective, or they bring something to it. Always talk about empowering the empowerers. And like, I was doing my business, kind of going along, and there was like, I was getting these clients that were just not inspiring. I was like starting to question, like, do I really love doing this? I'm getting these clients that are like, I wanted it more than they did. I felt like it was like, I was so passionate. I saw the things that they did. And then like, we'd come back session after session. They'd be like, I didn't do the thing. I didn't do the thing. I didn't do the thing. And it was like, man, I feel like I'm just taking your money because you're not doing anything. I'd be so excited after a coaching session and then nothing. Right. And then Desi came along, and I remember, man, like it was just the discovery meeting. We had this discovery session and, to see if we'd even be a good fit. And Desi went out and like closed like 3 clients out of it, man. He was like ripping it up and like, this is my guy right here. And it was one of those things. I don't know if I even told Desi this. If I didn't, it was that realization of, this is the guy right here. These are the types of people that I want to work with. And like, and knowing that I can't help everybody. Mm-hmm. When I was in my corporate career, so to speak, I would, kind of the realization after working with Desi would be the bottom feeders. I would always have to give myself a big pep talk to talk to them. And if they didn't put much effort in, I would just leave them alone. And I'd always feel so bad because my role within the company was to help everybody, but I didn't want to help everybody. It was the lions, it was the people. Like, I want to spend 80% of my time with the 80%ers that are doing 80% of the business and taking the action, because again, those people are lighting me up, and I can find more of what I'm doing that, when I see people that are taking that action, right? It's a game changer. And man, Desi lit my life up as far as like seeing, okay, this is who I want to work with. I can't help everybody. I want more Desis. And so it helped me take my business to another level. So man, I'm excited to catch up.
Absolutely, man. Yeah. Episode number 2, that was fun to re-listen to, and to see like, oh yeah, that was right before the pivot.
Yeah.
And where I was at mentally and with the business and with my clients and everything. And now where we are now, very different, which I'm sure we're going to dive into. But yeah, pretty cool journey. Glad to be back on, man.
Well, I'm excited to because I think your business is probably completely different now than what it was then. But I think there's probably stuff that's like aligned still.
Oh, very much so. I mean, I think the biggest thing. So I went from athlete mental game coaching, right? Coaching the mindset of athletes, helping them get from high school to college and how to actually stick with it in college. So I went from that to a whole lot of basically their parents saying like, hey, I do business. A lot of that stuff kind of applies in business. Do you do like the business athlete? And we're like, absolutely, for sure. Because at the end of the day, I know that I was born to believe in and challenge people. I don't really care what area they're in, what niche they're in. Like, if you want to get better, I'm your guy. I'm going to believe in and challenge you. So what we did was we switched from basically the sports mindset into small business. And what we did was we started with that leader in their mindset. But then as I started to develop, I saw something very clearly that I think is what really makes us different. And it's that small business is just like a college football team. when it comes to the operations, when it comes to the clarity, when it comes to the communications, when it comes to the departments, the offensive coordinator, the defensive coordinator, the head coach, the levels of leadership. I'm like, I see this clear as day. And I can speak that lingo all day long. I know I've been in every one of those rooms, every one of those conversations. Like, I'm like, this is pretty cool. And not many people are doing this, right? Like, I haven't met that perspective when it comes to small business and building teams. And if they can do it in sports and they can do it in the military, because I'm also a history minor and have studied the military too and through, I'm like, man, sports and military, those are the most highest performing teams in the world. And I'm like, if this same concept works there, why can't it work in small business? And it's like when you started comparing and contrasting, it's like everything that small business was missing was right there, clear as day. So that's when we really dove into it, and that now that leadership aspect comes in, and then that led to the full operations of the business and how we're setting things up, how we're really running a small business. Because, I mean, 9 out of 10 small business owners, operators, leaders, they don't go to business school.
Absolutely. Yeah.
They were a really good technician, or they were a really good doctor, or and it's like, I mean, I talked
their education is on the job. They're like learning as they go.
Absolutely. And they're like, hey, here's how to run a team. Like that class didn't exist. It didn't exist, Yeah. And so that was the big pivot, and it really took off, and it became something that was so blurry to me, came very picture perfectly clear when I could look at it through my lens that I do, right? And most people that I work with, like, they're sports people as well. So they speak that lingo immediately. And sports is a great analogy when it comes to business.
Oh, it's huge.
So, and especially football, like that's like beyond baseball. It's America's second favorite pastime.
Is baseball? No, I don't know.
Right? I don't know. It's softball for me now because I have 2 daughters.
That's awesome.
But yeah.
No, and as you were talking, and I think about it, we've had these conversations, but how lit up do people get? Because you talk about the business athlete. Sports are big for a reason. And there are so many people, whether they played sports in college themselves or in high school, or they've always wanted to be a part of that team. Mm-hmm. How does that, help them? How does that change the perspective of even like your program when they're looking at themselves as opposed to even a business, but they're looking at themselves kind of like a team and it being a sport?
Yeah, I think it just comes down to the core principles of like, hey, how do you build a Super Bowl team? How do you build a national championship football team? And those steps come out pretty clearly when you start to look at that. And you're like, all right, what is leadership? Well, it's culture, it's laws, it's execution, it's playbooks, it's training. And I'm like, those pieces are extremely obvious in the sports world.
Yeah.
So you're like, all right, well, let's break down, and you pull out a sports team. I always say like, hey, what's your sport? And then you try to operate in that realm, but I think the similarities are so clear, especially when you give them an example, right? You're like, hey, let's talk about the Michigan national championship team. Tell me about their culture. Oh, well, XYZ 1, 2, 3. And they start talking like crazy. And I said, all right, now compare that to yours.
Ooh.
And they're like, oh,
you can all of a sudden see the gap.
You're like, got it. Okay. Right. Oh, hey, well, if you're Jim Harbaugh, then what's missing? Right. Will those people run through a wall and almost not even go on the field or play because Jim Harbaugh got suspended or whatever? And they're like, oh, okay. And
then what's the strength of your leadership below you?
Right.
If you leave, if something happens, is somebody ready to step up?
Yeah, that's a great way to put it too, man. Like how many games he missed? 4 or something like that?
Yeah.
That year. And they went off without a hitch, And so it's like a good litmus test. It's like, hey, how do I evaluate this? Well, it's like, man, pull out your favorite sports team, just compare and contrast.
So this is awesome. So like, it comes along, and you make this pivot, and this is like right during COVID, right?
Yeah, this was like, right at the heart of it. I was actually looking at the exact date that episode aired, and it was maybe a month before COVID.
Yeah, that was right before. It was like, it was February. I did like 5-6 episodes, and then took that break during the lockdown.
Yeah, and so it was right in that timing, and so it was pretty cool to look back and go, oh, that's. I specifically remember a breakfast with my wife when they, on the Friday, I think it was March 13th, I want to say.
Yeah. Yep.
That they shut everything down, and it was immediately like, all right, we got to figure this out. We got to pivot, right? What's the pivot going to be? sports just got closed down. Like people are gonna be backing off on this, but businesses aren't gonna stop. So I'm like, how can we look at ourselves as like a lifeboat, not an extra expense, And so that's where that started to come in. It was pretty cool.
That's so cool. It's so cool how you make that transition.
Yeah. And it's really fun too, because I kind of fell in love with something that I wasn't really expecting. And that was just learning about the different businesses and the different industries. Like we've been in 27 different industries now. We're getting very close to having worked with over 100 different businesses, which is so fun, right? And how much I enjoy seeing those problems and solving those problems in the different worlds, I was not expecting. And I love it. People be like, so what's your niche? What's your industry? And I'm like, well, we do really well in the home service trades and also orthodontists. And people are like, what?
It's like from here to here.
And I'm like, I mean, here's how to explain it. If there's people involved, you probably have a people problem. and
Absolutely.
That's where we come in,
And that's the way I look at it too. My clients are all over the place, and it's not a specific industry. It's that people relation. It comes down to people. We're doing business with and leading and developing people.
Yeah. And for me, I love the fact that I like to work with the head coach, right? The owner operator, because they have the biggest impact. And you said, empower the empowerers. And I love that trickle effect, right? I mean, that goes all the way back to the legacy piece and my dad, but I like the fact that I can work with one and that might impact 100.
Yeah.
Because a lot of times they're like, oh, you're driven for the owner operator. And I'm like, yes, but also I like to think of myself as an advocate for that person on the front line, right? Who may currently not like what they do. And they might go home and they might complain about it. And they're not the best dad or the best mom or wife. And they ride the subway, they kick the dog, and that whole sob story. And I'm like, that pisses me the hell off. I hate that. That is a wasted life. So if I can help that leader to empower and make an impact on that person, that is top down, bottom up, all of the above. Right. And that's just as important to me.
That's absolutely huge. I don't know about you, if whenever I've been brought in to work with somebody's sales team or somebody that don't have the empowerment to really make a change.
Yeah.
I could help make a change in that person, but it's actually more frustrating than anything because now they realize that their job really sucks.
Yeah. Now for the first time they looked around.
Exactly.
And they're like, oh, I'm kind of confined here.
Exactly. And I noticed that's what was happening. And so I was like, do you want to start a business? That's how I realized I don't want to work with sales professionals because that is, I'm now convinced them to become entrepreneurs.
I love it too. And, a lot of times when I come in, what we do in general applies pressure, not even intentionally.
Yeah.
But hey, we're going to come in and let's call this business a sword. We're about to sharpen it. And some people might not be cool with that because they might be one of the peeps that there's direct confrontation with, hey, you're the iron and I'm the iron. We got to work together.
Yep.
So I'll tell it right. And I've learned that the hard way. I mean, I'll tell people right away, hey, look, you're talking about Bobby or Susie. They might not work out. They might leave on their own. We might have to fire them. Who knows? But and almost every time they're like, yeah, we figured that. And I'm like, that's good because I say it early now, because I've learned the hard way on that and been like, oh, we should probably fire Bobby or Susie. But it happens very commonly, very common that happens. And, and I always look at that as a way of we're not pressuring them to leave or anything like that. We're giving them an opportunity to launch into where they should be.
Oh, absolutely.
Into where they should go. I mean, I've literally been hired to fire people before and it's not fun. I don't see it like that. I see it as let's have a conversation to figure out where it is that you're supposed to be, right? Let me help you figure that out. Let's get beyond, I just need to remain and have a paycheck. But what are you born for? Let's talk about that. Let's talk about your purpose.
It's one of the fun things from my standpoint when I was with the job and being a boss, I had to fire people. And that was always my goal was nobody wants to go to work and suck. Nobody wants to do the thing that they do every day, that they spend more time with than their family and suck at it every day.
Right.
But they also are afraid to quit because they don't know what else is out there. And this is the
100%.
the thing that they can expect or they understand.
Yeah.
Even if they're afraid they're going to get fired every day, or even if they know they suck at the job. And I look at it as blessing and releasing people and helping them figure out that this is, if you don't do these things, this is probably not the job for you. If you don't like doing these things, and this is not However, I see you doing this and this and this. What if,
Right.
and I'd always get messages back from people that'd be like, thank you so much.
Yeah.
I was miserable there. I just
Yeah.
wasn't going to leave.
Yeah. I had one, man, it was fun. It was such a hard thing for me. I mean, I lost sleep over it.
Yeah.
And I was hired to do this. I mean, I was pretty detached, but man, still. And man, we had such a great conversation. And man, 4 years now, like they started their own business.
Wow.
They were
Yep.
rocking, had the best year ever in 24.
Yep.
And it was like, oh man, thanks, Desi. That's what I needed at the time. Right. I didn't know it, but and it's like, oh, good. That's so fun. Right. It's like, good. We made a difference there.
Absolutely.
We made some impact there. And then obviously they took it and they ran with it. A lot of times it's always like, thank you, Desi. And I'm like, I didn't do anything, man. I just facilitated the space, and tried to steer your mind in the right direction of like, let's go solve problems and make decisions and control your own destiny.
I love that you're up front and you don't try to sugarcoat it out of the gates, because I think it's setting that framework. And I've had clients that have hired me to like fix a person, and I'm like same thing.
Oh yeah,
because I've been there, and it's like you want to help the client, and you want to land the client or whatever. It's like, yeah, let's do this, but it's not going to work out with this person.
This is a hilarious topic because it's a call that I'll get most commonly. Hey, you have 5 minutes. I just want to talk to you about, and literally as soon as they say about, I'm like, we should probably let them go. And they'll be like, how'd you know? And I'm like, look, people have been leading people ever since the second person was on earth. Your leadership problem, it's not unique. I know you have a niche in an industry. I'm like, but it's not new. It's not a new problem. And I'm like, the bigger problem is that you shouldn't have hired them. You wanted a thoroughbred. You hired a donkey. You tried to train the donkey to run the Kentucky Derby.
Yeah.
Surprise, surprise, they can't.
They can't. Right.
Right. And you're like, hey, what the heck? And it's like, when you fire them, you should say that I would also fire myself, but I can't because I'm the owner. And it's like,
I set you up for failure, though.
So
That's
don't do
honesty.
that. Okay. Hire thoroughbreds.
Challenge.
And yes, it will be more expensive and it will take longer and it'll be worth every dime and every hour.
It only took 24 minutes, and you took Cam's challenge.
Boom.
I love it. Boom.
No doubt. Love it.
Yeah, man, that's it's huge. But again, to make that move and to be up front in.
Oh yeah. And the reason I do it is because I've already screwed all that up before. It's not like I've got it all figured out. I was perfect to begin with. Like, no, it's because I failed all those times, screwed that up, had a bad interaction with a client or whatever. And now I'm just like, hey, right up front, right? Right in the onboarding, I say, look, I'm going to require a commitment from you. Like, learning only happens with information plus behavior change. So if you're not going to change your behavior, I can send you a YouTube video. Right? Then just watch this video. You'll feel better for a minute and then go do whatever you were doing.
What are you gonna do anyway?
Right? But if you want to actually learn and do something different, then you're going to have to change your behavior. That's it, period. If you're not willing to do that, I don't want to work with you because it's not going to work. I'm not going to get a case study. I'm not going to get a testimonial. You're not going to be happy. I'm not going to be happy. And the business and the people in it are also not going to be happy. So what are we doing here? Right? Throwing money at something to make you feel better?
I want to unpack this for a second, because I think people listening, I know how many people I talk to around the sale and around sales, around mindset, and they fear a conversation like that because they don't they want the money.
Yeah.
But what do you find happens when you have conversations like that?
I find that I've screwed it up so many times that I needed someone to fog a mirror and I needed to fill my bank account. And then by the end of it, they were the worst freaking clients ever. It ended up being twice the frustration. And it was like, you know what? Just go find the right people. You're probably just being a lazy salesperson.
Yeah.
Right. And you're like, oh, you said you were interested. And so you go all in on that. And it's like, they're not even a fit and you knew it from the start. So I did it from screwing up and getting essentially quote unquote bad clients.
Yep.
And then it's like, this isn't working for anyone. And my gosh, they call me every other hour and ask the same stupid question. And they don't even do what I tell them to do.
Yeah.
And, you were talking about the front. It's like, those aren't the people that I want to help to begin with. And I'm like, I feel like I'm back in the classroom force feeding information to somebody.
Yep.
A squared plus B squared equals C squared. And I'm like, Nah, I'm not doing that again.
No, we want people that are like going to go out there and change the world with it, right? Like,
well, and also like, I mean, let's talk straight money in business. Like you want people who are going to stand on the table and be like, go talk to Desi, go talk to Jason. Yes. They changed my life.
Yes.
You know, not like, yeah, it was all right. It's all right. It's because you didn't do shit.
Exactly. Exactly.
You know?
Those same people will be the people that they quit their job because there were no leads. Yeah. They quit the chamber because they didn't get anything out of it. They're waiting for somebody to hand it to them.
100%. That's one of my favorites. The lead, when people say the leads suck.
The leads suck.
The leads suck. And I'm like, the leads suck, huh? Tell me about how much you believe in your product or service. And they're like, well, and I'm like, that's the problem right there. That's the problem right there.
I just said this morning. I can teach anybody how to sell something, but you have to believe it. You have to believe it. Like you have to be the number. You have to sell yourself first, and if you don't believe it, then I'm going to waste my time.
There's zero chance.
There's zero chance.
Yeah, it's so true.
But it's so huge. So what do you use when you take that mindset of like, I don't even want these clients over here. They're going to waste my time anyway. That's not going to be worth the money. And you take that hard stance of setting the framework of this is what it's going to look like. It's going to be hard. There's going to be work.
Yes.
What result do you see happen?
Much better clients, right? Much better clients who they're bought in. They want to change. They know it's going to be a process, right? Like obviously the most value would be if you slide your credit card and your business changes immediately.
Yep.
That's not the case with business and people. That's not how it works.
Yep.
Can we get a huge change really quick? Yeah. But like, will it stick? Right. And it takes, because a lot of times what we're doing is redoing perception when it comes to leadership. So it's like, I got a team of 10 maybe, and they bring me in and we got to find out what they think about this leader. And now to redo a first impression is like 17 or more impressions that are observable.
Yep.
So it's like, oh my gosh, we might need 170 interactions to change the perception of this leader, right? And I'm like, that's going to take a minute, right? So it's like, we got to be willing to go to battle.
And that's assuming the leader is making that incremental changes like that.
Yeah. I mean, that's like they're putting in very intentional effort in that is experienceable, is observable by their team and all of those types of things. So, it comes down to the constant accountability, the consistent accountability to stick to the system that we know works 100% of the time. Right. And it's like, if they got to have the buy-in and you got to get the team to buy in. But I mean, also what I've ran into is, obviously I'm coaching the leader, but if they bring me in to start coaching the team, I'll tell the leader like, hey, there's a scenario here where they will start to follow me. You'll tell them something and they'll look at me. Yeah. Right. And I'm like, so depending on the program, right? Like, yeah, we need that right now. Right. And that's like more like a fractional COO type of job.
Yep.
I'm going to come in, I'm going to get this team. We're going to get this buy-in. We're going to work on you as a leader. We're going to fix up the business and everything, get it rolling good. And then now it's going to take 2 or 3 months for me to offboard that trust back onto the leader. Right. And that's a process. And sometimes that's really needed. Sometimes not so much. And that comes kind of in that discovery that you're talking about. Like, hey, what do we need here?
Yeah.
And I'm like, depending on what they say, I'll be like, sounds like you don't really want them looking at me. Right. Okay. Well, then we need to build this a different way so that they trust you.
I love it how you take that discovery to really understand, again, how involved is it on your end, and, what are they expecting?
Yeah. A lot of times they'll be like, so how do you, evaluate this to start? And I'm like, I ask a whole bunch of questions. That's how, like, I don't pretend to know you at all or know your business at all. I know people, I know process, I know business, but they're all a little bit different. I don't know how you run that thing or how you run that team. Right. So I'm like, hey, what's your vision? What's your mission? What are your core values? What meetings do you have with who, about what and why? What KPIs do you have? Do you guys have a leaderboard? Right. How often do you have staff meetings? Do you guys do training? Talk to me about productivity. And it's like, they're like, oh, and I'm like, that's like the first 10. Right. I'm like, I need to know all of that to know. First of all, I don't even know if I can help you yet. People are like, hey, how much does it cost? I'm like, how fast is the color blue? Yeah. And I'm like, I don't even know if I can help you yet, man.
Yeah.
So I think that's important too. But I've learned, like, that was scary to say that at first.
Yep.
Yep. But you learn, like, oh, I just had 2 really horrible clients. who didn't pay very much, were a huge pain in the ass, and didn't get a case study or testimonial from. So, and I didn't even end up helping the business because they didn't really want to help the business. They wanted to pay money to fix a problem. And that's not the case.
You and I are both in that, like the 10% of the driven people, like the 10% of the world are driven, and they like they're the creators of all the great things and also the destruction of all the things, like all that stuff. However, I say that in the sense of like, you're going to go out there and you're going to keep going and you're going to take action and you're going to learn from your failures. I'm that same way. It's like, I'm going to go out there. I'm not really worried about how I'm going to fail. Yeah. I know it's going to happen. Yeah. And I know I'm going to learn from it and it's going to improve my offering, but I'm going to make money while I'm doing it. And I'm going to help you while I'm doing it because, for sure. Like it's one of those things like, there's so many people out there that maybe even listening right now that are paralyzed by the fear of the unknown or by the fear of making a failure. Yeah. And I love this conversation and understanding that like, the growth in the success comes in going out there and not being afraid.
That's where life exists.
Yeah.
Right. Like live your dash. Right. I love that poster. I mean, cause if you haven't been to the bottom of the barrel, you will at some point. I hope you're not. I hope no one ever goes there, but they will. Right. Yeah. It's going to happen at some point. Somebody's going to die. Right. Or you're going to lose your job or something bad's going to happen. Yep. And it's like, well, who are you then? Because it's you. Like, it's like a wrestling match and it's a solo one. You look around, you're like, oh shit, there's no one to help me but me. Yeah. Right. And it's like, okay, have you, like, I love this one. When I was working in the athlete, I used to say, you would rather be a warrior in a garden than a gardener in a war. So whatever you do, don't wake up and be a gardener in a war. Like, so what are you doing to prepare yourself? Like, I'm telling you right now, you quit your job, you're not going to die because of it. I can tell you that. Yeah. Yeah. Right. Like you there's someone in your life that cares about you to let you sleep on their front porch or something like that, Yeah. And sometimes I'll go back to that. Be like, man, this is a risky decision. Should we run this ad? Should we do this? Should we do that? Should we hire, fire, whatever? I'd be like, what's the worst that could happen here? It's like, ooh, I might miss a month of rent. I might miss my mortgage for a month. I'm like, I bet you'd be 3, 4, 5 months before they'd say anything. Let's do it. Yep. Yeah. And that's risk. It for sure is. But sometimes you got to take it down to that level. But just know, like, you're the only one that will make or break your life.
It's really crazy that, and there's been scary points. COVID was like happened, and all of a sudden it's like, whoa, okay, like all my business can be wiped out just like that. Yeah. But then there was so much growth and learning out of that too.
And there was other businesses that like boomed because of it.
Oh, and that's the thing. And that was my realization quickly because at first there was a panic of like, oh shit. But then to your point, you pivoted into business because it's like, oh, this is where actually they're going to need me more. And man, everybody's out here like running around confused and like, now is the time to really dive in.
Yeah. And it was where do you want to go? And how aggressive are you going to be? Like it was just not accepting the status quo. Hey, it's COVID. I'll be honest with you, man. You could have told me 6 months into COVID, I wouldn't even have known it existed. Yeah. I was doing everything completely like normal, right? Like, I mean, sure, COVID was great for efficiency when it comes to Zoom meetings and remote clients. I mean, we got clients, Texas, Alabama, Minnesota, like that part, amazing. Because it kind of made that regular, right? Yep. But I mean, as far as like going out and getting people and like, I mean, I was more aggressive. I was busier then just because I was like, all right, this is going to get harder. So we have to go harder. Yeah. Right. And now I'm kind of leaning into the fact of like, hey, what do I do if it gets easy? I'm like, I think if it gets easy, I'm going to go even harder, because like, who knows how long you'll get that nugget and how long that will last. Right. Yep. So it's like, man, if you're out there and if it's getting easy, go even harder. Cause like it might last a month. It might last a year. It might last 4 years, but like it could stop real quick. Just like that. That one ad that's like got 25x ROI might not work tomorrow. And like, just like that, it could change. So that's kind of a new concept I'm playing around in my head of like, what do we do when it gets easy? What do we do when we fix this stuff? It's like, go harder, go even harder on that. Cause you don't know how long or big that wave's going to be.
Man, absolutely. It's like, you double down into it. I think that we just talked about that this morning at boot camp is like the, people think that sales is like cyclical in the sense of like there's these ups and downs.
Yeah.
And it's only because when you get up here, you did all that work, you did all that prospecting, and then you're a fat cat. You're up here and you're like kick your feet up, and then all of a sudden, guess what? You didn't put the work in while you were making the money, and so now you're back down here.
And
so
one drops and two drops and three, and you didn't replace them.
Yeah.
You know? Yeah.
And then you're back and you're like digging and you're like putting the work in, and then you're climbing back up, and then you forget and you're like,
Yeah, absolutely. Especially like, you know, a lot of the businesses that I work with are service businesses. And man, when they figure it out, like when they're like, we've got a client acquisition channel, like this in gets me this out. It's like, man, get really, really clear and just do better and better and better at that. Mm-hmm. You know, I get a lot of like, I want to do something new, right? Man, I like to go back and be like, what is it you're currently doing? And if it's working, just do it better.
yes.
And then do it till it's like 90, 95% and really crank that knob. And then now do just more of it. Right. And then now that you've maxed out all of that, now do something new. Right. But people, I think like they get bored or like shiny object syndrome.
I was thinking, I'm trying to think of a good sports analogy, but you think about a pitcher, like they don't try to perfect 5 pitches at one time.
Yeah.
They're like one pitch at a time that they're working on.
Oh,
you
yeah.
know?
Yeah. You know, and your best, they have, you know,
And you
3.
put you don't have 5 in your arsenal. You
No,
have 3.
like you got a strikeout pitch. Like, and you know, and I think that I think an old mentor of mine, he was from like around New York, New Jersey. And he's like, it's kind of like backyard football, right? The one team, you do the double reverse, flea flicker, throw it to the guy on the left. And he goes, and then Tommy drops the ball. And he goes, how about this? How about you put the fat guys in the middle and run left? It's like, just do that, right? And I'm like, yes. That's also, I'm one of the big guys, so let's go left,
Let's
right?
go.
I'm like, so we're like, how can we apply that to your business? Because it's probably already plenty complex enough.
Absolutely.
You know, a lot of times, like I just had a recent client and they said, Desi, you made it small again because we were 5 guys and then COVID and we were 27. Right. And he's like, you helped me organize it and you made it small, which made it manageable, which made me kind of enjoy it more.
That's awesome.
And it was like, oh, that's really cool. I would have never explained it like that.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So it was so cool to kind of get that testimonial as an example of put the fat guys in the middle and run left, man. This is already hard enough, you know?
Make it easy. Don't try to outthink yourself.
Yeah. So I pull like my dad's old saying of KISS, like that's literally leadership law number 2. Keep it simple, stupid.
Yep.
Like talk to 5th graders, talk at that level because that's the average reading level of America. Keep it clear, keep it simple, keep it concise. And anyone who can read higher than a 5th grade level, they'll just process it even faster and get further.
And I just want to point this out right now for the people listening, because I know you're sitting there on your email right now, typing it out and like second guessing yourself and trying to use fancy words. And guess what? Those fuckers don't even know what you're saying.
No,
like calm it down, make it simple. I've got messages back from like people that I deem as like really important, and the words aren't even spelled right. Like they got like a one paragraph, one sentence like back to me.
I mean, first of all, it's just ChatGPT it.
Yeah.
But I mean, here's a great example. I'll do like annual planning meetings, or we'll do like all day workshop with like a C-suite or leadership team, or whatever you want to call it, right? Title them whatever you want. And I'll literally start the day with, hi, my name's Desi. I'll be the idiot in the room today. They'll be like, our quarterly earnings and our EBITDA and our profit. And I'll be like, I don't know what any of that shit means.
Yeah.
Right. So talking simpler terms, and everyone will look at me like, they give that look like, yeah, I didn't know either. You know, like
They're in the room and they're like,
according to our KPIs and our, you know, our vision statement states, and I'm like, what does any of this mean? And if I'm on the front line and an employee, what the hell do I care? You know, like you're thinking about the wrong stuff. I'll be like, hey, what does that mean? You know, and it works magic. It's like crazy.
because they don't even realize.
Or I'll be like, so what do you want me to write on the board? Like, you know, because it's about the people.
That's so fun. I love that exercise. Like, I'm going to be the idiot in the room today.
And I always say, like, people wouldn't do this for free. They wouldn't take that for free, right?
Yep.
You need that outside perspective to be like, you guys are too complex. Let's keep this real simple, right?
Because, again, people that work there don't know what it means.
No. No, they don't.
But they're not going to raise their hand and ask because
Nope.
they don't want to look stupid.
One of my favorite leadership tactics. It's the most simple thing in the world. You know, you get a group of people, you have like an hour meeting, you say any questions, what happens? No one raises their hand, right? My favorite leadership tactic is to build questions into your culture. Hey, we're going to have a great meeting today, super powerful. At the end of it, I'm going to have all 7 people in this circle go around and ask me one question. So be ready for that.
Yep.
And then at the end of it, it's like, all right, Bob, what's your question? All right, Susie, what's your question? Love it. So, hey, we're now going to ask questions. Go.
It's framing it in. It's creating that frame. It's the same thing that you do with your clients when you're like, hey, this Bobby and Susie might not make it, right?
Yep.
Hey, this is going to be difficult. We're going to have some difficult conversations. We're going to challenge.
Yes.
You're setting the frame. You're framing it. Like if I heard this once, like somebody went to a car dealership and they were going to buy a Jeep and they were used to driving around like a Corvette or like a smooth driving car,
Yeah.
right? I can't remember what the car was, but they the person said like the car salesman was like, oh, you're used to driving that. You're gonna now get in the Jeep, and I want you to understand that this car hugs the road, and so when you're driving down, it's gonna give you this experience where you feel every bump. And like the way he said it was making it sound like a good thing.
Yeah.
And when she got in the car, she was like, oh, he's right. I do feel every. If she would, and she said like if he wouldn't have said that, I would have been like, ugh. That didn't ride how I wanted to be. That was really bumpy. That was like I could feel the.
You mean we should set expectations?
Right.
That's crazy.
Crazy talk.
We can go down this road of expectations, but my favorite litmus test is to go to a random person in the organization, any level, doesn't matter, and just go, what is expected of you?
Ooh, that's fun.
And then when they tell you, and it might be like a 2-word answer, it might be a 2-hour answer, and then just go, how do you know? Right? And it's like, they'll tell you everything that it is that you need to know about that business right away. Like, how are you measured?
Oh my God.
How do you know if you're doing well or not?
Yeah.
We do an annual performance review. How long does that take? About 10 minutes. Do you pre-fill it out? No. I'm like, oh my gosh, this person has no clue. The number one question, literally Gallup survey from 2024, the most recent one. Number one question they want to know, just your frontline employee, is literally, how do I know I'm doing a good job? They just want to know if they're doing a good job or not.
Yep.
You know, and most of them have to wait. I mean, at the best 4 months to know.
Yep.
Sometimes 6 months, a year to know, am I doing a good job?
What percentage of companies do you work with when you come in or actually doing annual reviews?
I would say maybe 40 to 50%.
Yep.
Yeah. Probably half, you know, and they're doing them, but they're half-assing them.
Yep.
Even so, and they're doing just one a year, right? And I'm like, so these people are probably scared to death. They come into the principal's office. I'm like, why can't the principal's office be a good thing? That should be a time when you high-five them and give them a $50 gas card, take their wife out because they did a hell of a job on Project XYZ.
Yes.
Like, what the hell? Like, how do they?
It's
everyone
not
should
up the
always
things that you don't like about them and then springing it on them in the,
I call that the
review.
blindsider. Like, that's a blindsider leader. Like, that's not even. And this isn't about being fair, but that is so unfair.
Yeah.
That is just. I mean, you didn't hear that person. You don't understand that person. You probably just looked at their name and realized that they have a last name, right?
Yeah.
And those are things that are so wrong with it. But don't be a blindsider leader. I mean, there should be a process. There's a system to run, right? And it's like, because it's already, oh yeah, we got to do those, you know, type of deal. I've seen some of the best stuff I've seen. It's called an end of the week report. And it's literally just a Google sheet. And people are like, oh, KPIs, what numbers? And I'm like, no. What was the best part about your week? What was the worst part about your week? How can we communicate more effectively? What can leadership do better to support you? And here's the key, is don't just white label that. Answer and respond to every single one. That is just like golden. Now, the leader is having a continuous conversation about improvement, about leadership, about communication with every single person in the company. And it's like, how do I do that? How do I implement that? 4 questions in a Google sheet and just send it and say, hey, answer these. And your people, they're probably going to be super apprehensive at first because they're like, what the hell is this?
Yep.
What's he trying to get? What are they trying to do? It'll get better. The more consistent you are, the more open they will get. And it's just so important. Just communication.
I'd imagine the more consistent you are in the, I imagine it'd probably only take once if they got a positive feedback. Like they didn't get a negative, like all of a sudden you getting the cold shoulder or you're like scheduled less or whatever the ramification might be.
Yeah. And you have to look at feedback as a way of like, they gave you the truth.
Yes.
Right. And that goes right back to sports, right?
Yes.
Like Saban says that best. Like great athletes want the truth. Like, hey, good job on that pass. Like, yeah, I know. You know what I mean? But like, tell me where I can get better. They're just constantly looking around for the edge. Right? Where's my edge? Where's the one? Because the better and better you get in sports and as an athlete, the harder it is to find the thing that you need to get better at because you're pretty doggone good at all the things.
Yep.
Right. So now I'm like searching for truth of where I can improve even just a quarter, a tenth of a percent. We need to take that in business and leadership and communication and say, where can I get better? And when they say something that doesn't feel good, it's like, but perception is reality. If they're like, he's a shitty leader, then you are to them.
Yeah, absolutely.
Right? How did you get there? Like go down the trail of not I failed, but how do I now get better?
Yep.
Like get over yourself. We all suck at stuff. It's fine.
Yeah.
Right. And also, if you've never led a business before, why would you be any good at it? Like, so give yourself some grace.
And who mentored you?
Yeah, probably nobody. They saw a thing. They were like, I think I can do that pretty good. Or I have a dream or I have a purpose. And it's like, well, hey, you're going to suck and it's okay, but just keep going. Yeah, and I think that, obviously sports, you lose a game, you don't stop playing the sport. You just go to play the next game. Right. Yeah. But I think in business, we'll just get so distraught around those things, and people don't want the guru on the mountain leader anymore. They want the leader that's like, hey, I suck too. Right. I'm just like a half a step ahead of you guys. Yeah. My job is like, how can I help you do better? It's not like, hey, go win and make me money. That leader is never going to get anywhere.
I love that you said that too, because I think another big thing is that when you're in leadership, or especially if you haven't went through something like you haven't worked with you, people think that they can't be vulnerable, that they can't share, that they've made mistakes, that they've got to like look like they have the answers, and that people expect them to feel like they have the answers. And there's a different level of leadership when you can say, you know what, I don't have it figured out, or I did make this mistake right here. Yeah, because people want to know, like, how did he learn that? Yeah. Or how do they know that? And it's like, I always like, even when I'm, doing content like this, I'm always like, I'm not telling you what to do. I'm telling you what I've screwed up and learned from. That's it. So it's not like, hey, go eat oatmeal every day. And it's like, hey, I ate oatmeal because I screwed up and ate a bunch of junk food before that. Oatmeal tended to work good for me. Yeah. It's the same thing in business, right? And I think it's the same thing in leadership. A lot of times the stuff I talk about and I'll work with on clients, I'll be like, hey, let's meta this. The thing I'm doing with you, go do with your people. Like, hey, you know how I'm coaching you and asking you questions? That's called the Socratic coaching method. Help people solve their own problems by using that method. You know what I mean? Yeah. Because people always come to me for problems. And it's like, well, you've conditioned them to because you answer their problems. Yeah. You're not teaching them how to fish. Exactly. You're just handing them the fish every time. I always say, like, no. No one is allowed to come into my office and drop a problem and leave. You set a problem on my desk, you're going to stand there and I'm going to look at the problem and go, what are you going to do with that problem? I had this leader that was like, there was this one particular person she got on her team that really figured it out and would like, she wasn't stupid. She just knew that if she went to her, she would do it for her. Just quicker. Easier. And so she was like, she just keeps giving me all of her stuff. And I'm like, because you've conditioned her to do that. Yeah. You'll do it. You'll just do it for her. Yeah. And I think just back to that transparency, like those are the leaders that people will follow. Yeah. Right. Because it's always like, just be the leader that you would follow. Yeah. So what is it that you would follow? Right. Like for me, I'm very picky on that. Right. Like even like when it was like, even if it's a sports team, like I never was a hardcore. I'm telling you right now, like if Dan Campbell left the Lions and they brought in some schmo, Matt Patricia back. Like I would, I wouldn't follow that. Yeah. Like I would not be as much of a Lions fan. And you're like, oh, you don't, no, I don't follow the brand. I follow the leader. And people do the same exact thing. They're not working for your company. They're working for you. Right. When I love it because of the example I was thinking of as far as that vulnerability piece is Dan Campbell. I think it was Meek Robertson. A few weeks ago was talking about like when he knew that he was in the right place and knew that Dan Campbell was a leader that he'd follow forever. And he was talking about the loss after the Tampa Bay game. Yeah. And a big part of it was they didn't get the field goal team out on the field on time. And Dan Campbell like after the game, went into the locker room and was crushed. He's like, that man stood in front of us and cried and told him, we lost the game. You guys went out there and played your asses off. You lost the game because of me.
Yeah.
And he was like, I will run through whatever wall, wherever, anytime with that guy.
Yeah.
Because so many coaches, so many leaders come in and
You should have done this
You
better.
should have
You
did
should have
this.
done
You
that
should have
better.
this, instead of looking in the mirror and taking responsibility.
Yeah, I call that absolute accountability. You know, I think it's incredibly important. I think it's the foundation of really good leadership of like, stop pointing the finger, start pointing the thumb.
Mm-hmm.
Like this starts and stops with you. Like it's all comes down to leadership, right? Everything, everyone, it all comes down to leadership. So when you can do that, and it's like that right there, you would think like that's kind of a dichotomy of like, I'm about to go in this locker room and be like, this is my fault.
Absolutely.
100%. Like people might not trust me anymore. And guess what happened? The opposite.
The opposite happens.
They're like, I'll go to war. Like this is a war. Like, which means there's going to be some wins and losses of battles.
Yep.
Right. And it's like, hey, we just lost that battle. It's my fault. Here's what we're going to do. And that's the part that I like most about it, this absolute accountability, is when you say, hey, this is my fault. Guess what gets to happen? You also get to be the solution. Hey, this is my fault, but good thing that you know me, because if it's my fault, guess what we're going to do about it?
That's exactly
We're going to fix it. And here's how we're going to fix it. A, B, C.
A, B, C.
Right? And guess whose responsibility is to make sure that happens? Me.
And I love that absolute accountability part, because there's a difference between being vulnerable and saying that was on me, and coming to your team every week and saying that was on me, that was on me. That was that's Matt Patricia and Rod Marinelli and Jim Schwartz and every other joke of the Lions coach we've had that have like, you know, tried to get out of the basement and just couldn't do it.
Yep.
You know, and then you have a leader of men like Dan Campbell that's like, this is my fault. It never happened again.
And it will not happen again. Yeah. That's the biggest. And here's how it's not going to happen again.
Yep.
Right. And that's the key. And because really without that, like it's just a shadow of accountability. You know, it's not like we're actually, hey, it's my fault again. Like if you have to say the word again, we have a problem. Now you're losing trust.
Absolutely.
Now there's going to be resentment, right? Now all those things come in to play that are negative and going to spread faster, you know, than positive stuff.
Absolutely.
I mean, always negativity spreads faster than positivity, which is unfortunate.
And just the other piece with leadership is like when they then take that accountability, you know, when you see a leader working hard, they're you know, they're just as bought in, so bought in, and they're doing like, you're going to go to work and grind.
Oh yeah. You'll do anything to help them to win, you know, in your team, in your organization, whatever it takes, in their life, in their family, you know, and then, you know, once that's your foundation, like I always say, there's a good litmus test is if something goes wrong and you have multiple people duking it out saying that was on me, is my fault. And then the other person's like, no, that's on me. That's my fault.
Yep.
Right. Like, you know, you got something good there.
Oh yeah.
Because also the first leadership law is unite and support. There is nothing stronger in the world than unity. Right. So it's like, and that is not going to happen without absolute accountability.
Yep.
So you have to have that as your foundation. And then once that builds, you can start to unite. Right. And now you're looking at where's your silos? Yeah. Break down those silos. Talk about unity. How do you form unity? How do you create a team? And that's why I would say unite and support. Everyone should be supporting everyone else. We're in the same color. We're on the same team.
Yep.
Right. So we need to work that way. Cause man, you get so many Department X versus Department Y.
Oh my God.
Or they don't even, like, the left hand doesn't know what the right hand's doing.
Yep.
You know, and it's like they should at least know a little bit.
Operations and sales need to be connected.
Oh my gosh, yes. Marketing and sales, same thing.
Marketing and sales.
Right? We're marketing this.
Yeah.
We're selling that. And I'm like, what the hell are you people doing? We're getting a room together.
How many companies do you go to where a marketing campaign is going out and the salespeople know nothing about it?
Oh yeah. So
I've worked for so many companies like that, and it's like all of a sudden
half of them
clients are calling us, and we're like, I don't know, let me check, like, and then we feel stupid, and then, you know, it's just one of those things, like being on that same page. I love that you're like, it's the college football experience, because again, I think your ideal client is going to be a fan of sports. I can't imagine you have anybody.
Yeah, I mean, if you're not a sports person, we're probably not meant to be together.
I was going to say, you're probably not connecting with anybody that's not.
No, you know, and it's funny too, because I work with a lot of female leadership.
Yeah.
You know, and obviously I'm a female leadership advocate now. I got 2 daughters, man. We're going to take over the world.
Yeah.
And you'd be surprised, man. Female leadership is really growing. And it's really powerful and it's super impactful. And, you know, the things that the legacy that I'm trying to build for my daughters. So if you're a female out there and you're like, man, I don't know, I'm like, man, go for it. There is so much support and resources for you, and man, you can take over the world. It's really is powerful. I absolutely love my female leaders. I support them with everything we got. I'm actually looking on the brink of launching like a women's assembly kind of deal.
Awesome.
And just bringing in some super powerful women that we've been able to work with over the years and speak into their life. And because that's what I'm trying to build with my daughters. So I think that's really important.
That's really awesome. You can flip it around. And it's like you have your daughter, so you can kind of look at it from that lens.
And that's the big bad football guy saying that.
Yeah.
And also a lot of them were really good athletes too.
Oh, for sure.
And they're just really competitive. And I'm like, I can work with that. I want to win. Okay. Let's do it. Right. I'm going to talk about football. You might not understand it, but I was also a teacher for 10 years. So I know how to bring up different analogies and teach people in different ways. Right. Like I got classroom management skills. So it's fun.
It's fun. And I love this. And as you were talking, it's like, it seems so obvious how to build a good team, but like, there's so few people that are doing it. And you even look in the sports world, like I can think of a handful of teams that are actually trying to win, like the Lions, and you talk about like team unity. And what's really cool is kind of seeing what's happening in Detroit now. Like the Pistons are kind of on that same wave where it's that team unity. There's like,
you mean good leadership spreads?
Good leadership spreads, right?
Yeah,
it's just,
does.
But like you look at whether the company level or the sports level, why do so few people get it?
Yeah. I think it's their ambition, and it's their ambition about the thing, not the people. I think that's a big problem. I want to make a lot of money, right? And I want to go really fast, right? And it's a cliche, but like if you want to go fast, go alone. If you want to go far, go together.
Yep.
I think that's so true. It's insane. And I think it's the why. Like, man, if your purpose and your industry and your system is built to be a solopreneur, like then go get it. Go after it. But that's not a lot of situations, right? And I mean, I've learned one of the coolest things is providing opportunities for others, right? And it's like, man, working under us might be the coolest thing that ever happens to them.
Yeah.
That is like that's really cool. That is unexpected.
Empowering and changing lives.
Yeah. I mean, so many leaders and business owners are like, man, if it wasn't for this business, so-and-so wouldn't be doing so well or whatever. But here they're flourishing, they're killing it. They got a better relationship. They're a better dad. They're a better mom, like all of the above. Like that's the important stuff, right? So I think it's just their drive is towards the wrong thing. I know I got a friend, Sean Hart. He always says, as soon as he stopped chasing the bag and started chasing the assignment, the bag started chasing him. I thought that was so good. He was at our event just last week, and I was like, you got to bring this up today, man, because that's one of my favorites of his. But I think that's one of the biggest problems. And I think I would say the other one too is the statement of we've always done it that way. It's just they're just trying to be like what they saw when they grow up, when they were kind of cutting their teeth and they were going through everything, and it's like be different. If you look at all the best, they're different.
Absolutely.
Right? Dan Campbell, he's different. He's different kind of animal now.
Yep.
Right?
He was a different kind of animal coming in.
Yeah.
And I love that people looked at him like he was crazy and stuff like
100%.
that. But everything he said came to fruition. I forgot what book I was reading this weekend. I was listening to something and they talked about like a visionary. Like when you're a visionary, they're gonna if you're cutting edge, if you're a visionary, then when you speak, people are gonna think you're crazy.
Yeah.
Until you do what you say you're gonna do.
Exactly.
And then they look at you like you're you're this great thing.
Yeah, I think another reason too why it is so obvious, right? But it's really hard to implement and execute. Is that we get caught in the weeds of technical tactics, like what CRM should I use and what and the little tiny stuff.
Yeah.
Honestly, a lot of it's like the hard skills that you can learn pretty quickly, but we get caught in the weeds of those things. And it's like, but what about culture? Like, do your people believe in you? Right. Oh yeah. But the CRM, and like, it doesn't matter, man.
It doesn't matter.
No, if you don't get that foundation right. So I think it's what they just go too fast. And they don't lay the foundation for themselves, even as a leader. And I mean, because honestly, that's what I do very commonly is go back and lay the foundation. right, of the vision, the mission, the core values.
Yep.
And then actually not just creating them, putting them on the wall, but like ingraining them in the whole organization and everyone.
How often do you like when do you have to change core values a lot when?
Yeah, very commonly,
Yeah.
you know, and because a lot of times they'll be external,
Yeah.
like a marketing gig, you know, kind of deal.
But
And
they
I'm
really
like,
mean nothing.
yeah. And I'm like, this is an internal thing. This is internal marketing. Like you have internal customers here essentially. And I mean, the best, oftentimes what happens is they work for both, but you start internal. And usually it's like, hey, you're the owner operator. You've got a 25-person team. Like this isn't some corporate gig where you got 1,000 people. Like you are the culture, man.
Yep.
Right. Like, so tell me about you. How do you operate in life? Like, what is it that you believe in? Right. Like I believe in competitive greatness. Be at your best when your best is required and love a good challenge. So it's like, if you're not hey, in the meet and greet, by the way, our most difficult core value to uphold is competitive greatness. This is what it means. How does that make you feel?
Yep.
Right. And if I don't get a hell yeah, I'm on board for that shit.
Yep.
Then it's like, if they go like this and they back off, I'm like, uh-oh. But I mean, also that's why, I mean, I have a very tiny team and most of them, nope, not most of them, all of them played college athletics, if not professional athletics.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Because I mean, our job is other people's teams. So we got to be on point.
Well, this is the thing, and I love like when you use that language. That's you. It so describes you and your core value. But if you have somebody that's not them, you're not going to work out very well. They're going to struggle. They're going to feel like they're not a good fit, and they're not going to really even understand why. They're just not that person.
Yeah, you come in and maybe you're that person, but you got a team who's not like that at all.
Yeah,
and you're like, uh-oh.
But
you come to me and you're like, they need to take some initiative and they just need to get their asses moving.
Yeah.
And I'm like, did you tell them that? And they're like, no. And you're like, what the hell are we doing here, man? And I'll very commonly, I'll be like, they need more of you.
Yes.
Like, so go out on that floor and start yelling because you just like to yell and that's how you operate. And if they all cower, like, what the heck? Why the hell did you hire them in the first place? If they can't take a challenge. They can't. And it's like, well, I mean, not all leaders are like that, and that's fine too.
Yeah.
Like, hey, loyalty, teamwork, right?
Yep.
You know, empathy. Cool. Those are awesome too. Maybe that's how you are and how you lead.
Yep.
Does your team operate like that? Because if not, like we need to reset some things.
And it's going back even like what you do with your clients, framing it in, setting the expectations. This is what it's like to work with us. Like you're like, is that you? How do you feel about that?
Yeah.
You know?
I like going there too. I always say, like, I mean, people talk about hard conversations all the time, right? I like data, truth, and fact, no opinion and feeling, right? Hey, the expectation was for you to have a 75% close rate in February. You had a 50. Do you see that here on the numbers? Yes. How are you doing with that? And now I'm taking the Socratic method.
Yep.
Well, I this, that, and the other. It's like, okay, what support do you need from me to improve that? Well, I thought it was okay. And you're like, we have a problem, right?
Yep.
We have an effort problem.
Yep.
Right. Now, if they're like, yeah, this and this, and I think I could use some more training on this. My discovery's not so good. I need to work on my commitment stage. You're like, all right, we can work with this person, man. I'll help them until the cows come home.
Yep.
Right. But that's a
how
super
much
easy
quicker
way.
can you get out the problems? Stop wasting your money and paying the people that are not good fits. They're never going to be good fits, no matter how many conversations you have with them. It's just going to make them hate you more and you hate them more, you know?
Yeah. And it's the reason I learned that is because I always would lead with anger on that because I'd just be pissed that they're not trying hard.
Yeah.
You know, and then their numbers don't show it. And I'd be just, what the hell, man? You know, and that was always like, ooh, that was too much emotion. And it was like, I need to hold on. Where's the data that backs up how I'm feeling? Right. Which that was never my strong suit. But when I learned that, it was like 50, 70. See the gap? And then it was like, okay, now that's out of the way. That doesn't even really matter anymore. Now let's just talk about how do we get better. Right. We're going to come back to that to look for improvement. But if you went from 50 to 60, I'm good. Like we're good. You're trying. You're getting better.
Yep.
Hey, you didn't hit your 70. Now, if I'm like, now if you stay at 60 for 4 months, now we got a problem. You know what I mean? But get it out of the way and also like make sure that you have something to look at. Like I like to show it.
Yeah.
Because like I'm not just screaming at you. There's a process. There's a measurement that we laid out beforehand. Right? Why the hell didn't you close at 80%? It's like I didn't. did you want, I was supposed to close at 80%? And it's like, oh yeah, I thought that in my head. I didn't tell you that. I thought we talked about that in the meeting, right? It's like, no. So you blindsided them again.
Yeah.
Now they hate you.
Now they hate you. And you can't even hold them accountable because you didn't set the expectation in the first place.
And here's what happens too I do DISC, right? And one of the common things is we have S personalities, like 70% of the population, right? So, what I learned about an S personality is they won't have a hard conversation or hold people accountable unless they're very confident in the expectation being set very clearly and collaboratively. Mm-hmm. And I'm like, well, then we definitely need to make sure that happens because that's 70% of our population.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yes.
And now also 7% of the ones receiving that are S personalities too. So we got to make sure that there's very good, clear, collaborative expectations set and agreed upon so that we can even have the right to talk about accountability.
Absolutely.
Right? And I learned that the hard way, just coaching a lot of S leaders, like, what the hell, just do the thing, And it's like, I don't feel confident in that. I don't know if I shared it with them. And it was before you know it, I was like, you know what, you're right. So let's go back. We were talking about the branch. Let's talk about the root, right? And that expectation, that's the root. Let's lay it out like that.
How does a D, coming from a D, communicate with an S?
Calm down. Slow down. Make sure that you're paying attention to them as a person, not just the number. Slow your tone, slow your rhythm, kind of like I'm doing literally right now.
That's why I'm like, whoa, you're doing it right now. Yeah.
Just slow down. Talk to Bob about their kids, their family, their stability. Tell them how you appreciate how loyal they are. Talk about their strengths, and then ask them permission. Hey, now that we've covered all of this, can we talk about some areas you might be able to improve? Yes. Cool. 70-50 gap. How can I help? Right? So you just got to be more personable with them. They're steadier paced and they focus on people.
Yep.
But an S personality doesn't focus on a lot of people, like only like 3 to 5. They have a small circle. In I personality, they got like 30 to 100, right? Lots of people, right? More like us. So you got to know that. And first of all, you need to become one of those people. And that becomes that we build a relationship. Like I always say, relationship trumps chain of command. So if you haven't earned the right to have those conversations with them, they're not going to go well.
Yeah.
So you got to build that relationship with that S personality, especially because man, they're the ones that row the boat, right? Like us, we're just standing there pointing the direction. Like if everyone else left us, we'd just be floating in a boat, pointing in a direction. Yeah. And the I personalities, they make sure that everyone's encouraged and feeling good. So they want to continue rowing the boat. The S's, they actually row the boat and do the things and get them done and follow through with them, right?
Yeah.
And the C, they just tell us what's going wrong. And they help point out all the problems. No, I love C personalities because they fill in. They chart the course.
Yeah.
Right? Hey, which way is the rudder going? Well, I don't care. We're just rowing fast.
Well, that's the thing is like when we think about our differences within our personalities, our strengths, our superpowers, all that kind of stuff is like sometimes it can be hard to fathom that there's a C-type personality that enjoys doing. I couldn't picture enjoying doing the things that they do.
Yeah.
Like that would crush my energy. Like, kill me, I don't want to do that. But then they're like, oh, let me do this. So it's like talking when you're delegating and creating that culture and that leadership. It's like there are people on your team that would love to do that for you.
Oh, absolutely. I always say like you can. When you look at delegation, one, it's like a rope. I think that's the best analogy. And oftentimes what we do is we throw the whole rope at people and don't hold on to our end, right? Or like there isn't even a rope. We didn't even get that far.
Yeah.
We just came up with it in our head, right? But I always say like you hand them the rope, you keep hold of the other side of the rope. And the rope starts when it's short and it's taut. And as they get better and better, as they basically prove themselves to be more and more trustworthy with the thing, the task, the skill, the concept, you lengthen the rope a little bit. You never let it go and you never go slack, right? On either side.
Yeah.
And that is how to do delegation really well. But when you're talking about like who's going to be good at what, right? One, you look at their capacity and you look at their skills. And if that doesn't match up, if they're full and they hate Google Sheets, why am I going to give them this massive 7-tab Google Sheet to do?
Oh my God, yeah.
Right?
They're going to hate their life.
But if they've got a little bit of room, right, which you always want to make sure that you're testing capacity, not just asking them. So you have to make sure you don't have lazy people, right? And you know that they're really good at details and stuff, then give them that kind of work. Especially if it's work that you don't like and you're not good at. Like that's usually where delegation lies. If you love it and you're really good at it, you should probably continue to do it.
Yep.
Because you're definitely going to do it better than anyone else in your organization, you know, and they get super technical and tactical on like what to delegate to who, you know, but like as you get up in leadership and like you hire people and you got more levels and things like that, you need to make sure that you are doing the most impactful things for your organization, which when you're 1-2 person, it could be selling. It could be you're fixing the heater type of a deal, right? When you're 17, 20, probably going to start working on the business more than in it.
Hopefully you're working in that one quadrant where it's like all the stuff that you love doing and that you're really good at, because that's making the company the most money, whatever that is. If you're the idea
100%.
person.
Yep, 100%. And you just got to, as you grow, right, and as you encounter problems, essentially, you got to make sure you're living in that and then support yourself with the people and or the money or the time to make sure that you're covering those other things that you're not so good at and that you also don't like doing. Right. But when you're first starting out, you're probably going to have to do it all, and that's fine.
Yeah.
Right. Guess what? It'll make you a jack of all trades, and you'll know just enough when you do go get that support to not get screwed over.
Yes.
Essentially.
Yeah. I think you should know all the assets of your business. Like there are people that won't touch their numbers, for example, and because they have, like all the support. You should know your numbers.
Yeah.
Because they might rip you off. You know, 1, 2. You should know your numbers just from a standpoint so how you're going to make more money if you don't understand where
Let's
you're
say
at.
there's certain principles and like non-negotiables of business.
Yep.
There's just like if you want to do this well, you're going to have to know these things, right? At least to a degree. Or, I always like say, like find a mentor who needs absolutely nothing from you, right? And like you don't really need anything from them. That's a great relationship to have.
Yeah.
Because they can just tell you the truth. They can look at the things. They've been there. They've done that. And these are sometimes really hard to find.
Oh, yeah.
I searched for 5-6 years before I found my mentor. And it was life altering. And it was business altering also. Because guess what? He needs absolutely nothing from me.
Yeah.
So he's already been there. He's retired. And he's like, he literally said all the time, Desi, there's no business problem that doesn't have a business solution. So let's dig in. And he's very calm. But boy, you go to cross him or you try to take money from him, he's a super high D personality. He ain't going to take any of that shit. Right?
I love those people that are very calm on the surface until you like shake them.
So you hit the button. Don't hit the button, right? And I think those people are important to have in your life. I think you need cheerleaders, you need coaches, you need mentors.
Absolutely.
You need those, you need support. Business is hard, right? And it's complex. So having the right support and keeping it as simple as possible are like superpowers. And then I think the third one would be awareness. Self-awareness, I think, is also a superpower.
Oh, huge.
As a leader, as a salesperson, as a team member, like as a business, all the above. Like you need to have that awareness in the moment to not just lead with emotion, but know, why am I angry? Why am I happy?
Yep. How
can I step back and look at this? Like the ability to detach and look at things.
That awareness piece is huge, like all throughout your life. And I think that's part of the meaning in life. It's almost like that game. And like the more we can understand why we respond to things, the more we become like that Jedi master. Yeah,
no doubt. It's helped me a lot, as just you go through the struggles of building a business and helping other people. And it's almost like I'll step in a lot of times and almost like be the awareness guy in the business. Like one of the things that I like to do, I'll just take my notepad and just sit in the middle of the business. And I'm just feeling it. What's the vibe? I'm just looking around. How are people operating? How do people dress? And I'm just being aware, and looking around and be like, hey, did you know so-and-so? Or did you know that this is how and then did you know? And most of the time they didn't know over half of those things. Yep. And I'm like, how did you know that? And I'm like, sat in your front office for an hour. Like that's it,
That's it.
So awareness can really help you figure out where to sharpen the sword.
Well, and it's huge. And you talked about earlier, not necessarily knowing anything about their industry or their business. Mm-hmm. And I think that's so helpful when you come in, because again, they're seeing, I know working with clients, they're always like, well, you don't understand my industry. Well, we have this unique challenge or we have this unique problem, but you get in, and to your point,
I lead with that.
Yeah.
And I'd be like, hey, I don't know anything about fixing cars.
Yep.
And I'm not going to pretend to. And that'll be, if I'm the fractional GM, run a 30-person team. They're going to look at they're going to look at me for 6 months. Right. And I'll be like, I don't know how to fix cars and I don't care.
Yep.
Right?
I'm not going to learn
I'm
while
not
I'm here.
to fix the cars. Right.
Yeah.
I'm here to fix the playbooks and the people and the processes and build the system, and so I always explain it like if you're at a really busy party and you're down on the main floor, and there's a woman in a red dress somewhere in that party, but there's like 1,000 people on the dance floor. I'm the dude up on the balcony. It's like, she's right there. Right? It's like, I come in, I look around and I go, it's broken right there.
Yep.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So that outside perspective, one of like, I don't need anything from them. I'm just there to help, right? I was brought in. My job is to find the problem and fix the problem, right? So you just point it out and then go, okay, let's work on it. Put the lens on that one.
It's so fun because it's so easy. They don't see it because they're in it every day.
And it's same for me.
Same, yeah, no, absolutely.
You go to look at it and you're like, I need to have some outside help here. I can tell you,
It's frustrating as hell when you do stuff for clients and then you're like, why can't I do that for my own business?
Exactly. You're like, I should probably do that myself.
I should probably do that.
The thing, I mean, I think who says Rich Litvin, he says the thing that you struggle with the most, you will be absolutely amazing at helping others with,
Yep.
So, and it's like, hey, leadership. And it's like, I got a 5 and 7-year-old, man. I screw up leadership every day, every day. And then my wife's like, aren't you the leadership guy? I'm like, shit. Yeah. So it's real, man. And that's another thing that I like about a lot of what I do is it's not just business leadership.
Yeah.
Like we want to talk disc, like it's not just like with your business people, like it's at home. And to me, those are incredible. Those are more important.
Absolutely.
It's like, you want to talk about leadership, parenting. Oh my gosh, that's the most important leadership role you'll ever have in your life. Absolutely. And it is also the hardest. And you're trying to hit a moving target.
Yeah.
And it's sometimes literally, all the time mentally. And I think those things, like to me, like I build leaders so that they can build teams, so that those teams build families and those families build communities, and everyone, all ships rise with that tide. To me, that's incredibly important. If we can fix, and improve the strength of that family and that mom and that dad and that father-son, that father-daughter relationship, like the world gets better.
Yep.
All because we're better communicators and we're better leaders in all facets, and that is like, that's what really pisses me off. That's what I'm good at. That's what drives me. That's what I'm passionate about. And that's what I would do every day, secretly for free, other than all the people listening to this.
If I hadn't yet, that's hilarious.
If those 5 and 7-year-old didn't need to eat dinner tonight, right?
Well, and that's the thing. We need money.
Yeah.
We have to have money to pay our bills and make sure our family eats and all those kind of things. We need money to make sure that we can go back and empower more people.
Absolutely.
Right? Because without that, we can't grow our business. You can't bring on your team. There's so many things that you're limited on the amount of impact that you can make. The fact of the matter is we need money.
Yeah.
But what if we were doing what we love to do? You were talking about before you got here, this has been a busy week. You were out of town.
Oh my gosh. Yeah.
And then,
I loved every minute of it, and I think too, a large piece of what both of us do is we need commitment from our people, right?
Yep.
From our clients, from our teams. And that is a form of commitment that hurts. And because of that pain, we will do something.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
And it's like, I said it earlier. I think I said it earlier, like people wouldn't hear that for free. But if I paid you, 2, 3, 4, 5 G's, I'm going to listen and write something down for you to yell at me.
That's exactly it. And we probably talked about this at one point, but it's like one of those things I tell people, like, I'm not going to do anything for you for free for 2 reasons. 1, you're not going to listen to it.
Yeah.
Nobody cares about free advice. 2, I'm going to get pissy with you. I'm going to cancel our meetings. I'm going to, because if something else comes along, it's our internal. I will start off so happy to help you for free. Like I'm taking care of you. And then at some point you call me again because it's the free people that want the most energy.
Oh yeah.
It is what it is. Like the free and the cheap people, the people that don't have the money want more of your time for some reason. It's really crazy. No offense to everybody, but it is just the way it is. And then that 4th time they call me, I'm like, I'm
busy. I didn't get that text.
I didn't get that text. Instead of just doing that, I'm going to cut that off right now because you're not even taking the advice. You're not even listening to what I'm saying because it's free.
And the best, the best people, the people that want to get better the fastest and the most are the most committed to that anyways. And it's not a problem.
Yep.
Right. The best clients are like, I know I have a problem. Right. I want to fix the problem. I know I'm part of that problem.
Yep.
I need help. Right. And I know that if I don't pay you and this is an agreement and a contract, like it's not gonna, I won't change. Like, cause like I tried it, I screwed it up already.
Exactly.
And those are the ones like, all right, this is going to work. In 6 months, you're going to be transformed and it's going to be awesome. Right. And we're both going to be happy. And, I'm available to you all the time. Right. I always say, like, I have Voxer. I'm like, hey, outside of like crazy hours with my kids, you can Voxer me and hit me up on a walkie talkie. Those are the people that very rarely use it.
That's funny.
Because they do their homework.
Yep.
You gave them a thing
Yep.
at the end of the session.
Yep.
And they're executing it and they're doing it, Dude,
I remember I started recording my sessions with you because you'd go back and you'd listen to them.
Yes.
And it was like, that was one of the game changers for me.
Yeah.
It was like going back and recording it. And that was one of the things of like, I knew I had a client that I loved working with because they would actually go back and dissect the stuff.
Oh yeah. Hey, I said a thing or you said a thing. I need to know where that was.
Yep.
I'll do that in my onboarding now. So I'll tell people, hey, my best clients, they will re-listen. They will review the notes. They will click around.
Yep.
Right. And I set that frame right away.
Yep.
Hey, we got Voxer. Some people use it a ton. Some people don't use it a bunch. What I've noticed is that my best clients, they use it once or twice a week. And they ask a very tactical question. And I give them an example of that question.
Yeah.
Right. So I'm giving them I'm training them. Here's how to use this tool to the best of your ability.
Yep.
And so I think that's really important too. But yeah, I loved those recordings, man. Especially if we did like a role play or whatever. I wanted to hear that.
Yeah.
Because I'm an athlete. So it's like, if you want me to take a 45-degree angle step with my right foot, you might need to pick my foot up and put it there.
Oh, for sure. Well, and so like for me, as I've like dove in and it's like becoming aware, it's like, what is that thing that I'm doing? Like I had a coach a few months ago that was like, what's that thing that you do for free? That thing that you do just because just it's become so easy. And then when you do it for somebody, they're like, oh my God, I can't believe you did that. And it's like always that thing, somebody just like tells me their story and I can create a post for them or like position them like, oh, this is how you market that. This is how you explain that, blah, blah, blah. And it's like, it's fine tuning that. And then, and then realizing, oh, you charge for, it's like a whole just awareness piece there.
Yeah. And it's, it's the nature of the beast. It's part of doing business. It's how we actually change behavior because we have a little bit of pain. Yeah. So it's very similar. Like you walk around, start paying cash for everything, you will spend less money. There is no doubt about it.
Oh my God. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And it's like, ooh, man, everybody's like, ooh,
it's so crazy when you have cash, how quickly you watch it disappear. You know what I mean?
Gosh. I'm like, I had 70. Now I have 30. What the heck? Where'd it go? Where'd you do it? Did you steal that?
It's so much less painful on the card. You don't see it happening like that.
Yeah. One of my examples with leadership too is I call it the leadership bank account. And it's like with every single interaction, did you put money in your leadership bank account or did you withdraw money?
Ooh.
So it's like, hey, me and you had a conversation. It was an interaction. Did I put money into my leadership bank account with you or did I take it out? Right. And you want 9 out of 10 times to put money in.
Yeah.
We're going to have that one time with Jay. I need you to stay late today, man. Like we got this big client coming in. My kids got a game.
Yeah.
I know like, hey, that's going to happen.
Yep.
Right.
Yep.
But like you want to be very intentional. Did this interaction put money into that bank account?
And hopefully, again, you've worked so hard that their bank is overflowing. And so they're more than happy to go do that for you.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And I think it's, as literal as it is hypothetical.
Yeah.
Of like, if you're putting leadership dollars into all of your team's bank account, right? Just because you're a good communicator and you're a good leader and you believe in them, I bet your actual bank account goes up. And it's like a really cool, that's awesome. Oh, now some people are like, oh, now I'm interested. Yeah. Now I'm listening, but it's directly correlated for sure.
I love the analogies and whether it's sports or the leadership bank account. That's awesome because helping people make it easy. Because I think this is what it boils down to is like relationships and communication, whether it's sales, whether it's leadership, whether it's, marriages. It's all really easy. We just make it so hard.
Yeah, no doubt. And I think, and it's like one of those leadership meta moments, like when you're explaining things, stories, examples, analogies. They make things very easy for people to understand.
Yes.
Right. And so when you're doing that, share those things. It's like blank. Let me tell you when.
Yep.
Right. Let me give you an example. Right. People understand that stuff a lot easier. Like we're humans. We live in stories.
Yes.
You know, not like X's and O's. As much as I want to talk about the X's and O's, if you can connect it to an analogy, it's like fishing. It's like farming. It's like, you know, it's like money. It's like football.
Yep.
We're like, oh, I like that. So it makes it easier for us to understand.
It's way easier. I love it. There's a whole concept of this whole podcast is stories or data with soul. You know, when we listen to stories, there's so much data in that.
Oh yeah.
You know, it's like even sitting down to the client and like asking them all those questions, like discovering so much, and then you're hearing their story.
Oh
You're
yeah.
hearing this, or you're hearing the sales rep story or the leader story, and you're putting that all together to form the whole picture. And how much data is in that? To your point,
Oh my gosh. Yeah.
you know, like you're finding within a couple minutes, you're finding out the whole story of the company.
Oh yeah. There's nuggets like we drop seeds with our behavior.
To where all of a sudden the lady in the red dress is very clear to you.
Oh yeah. We got the full sketch right there.
You got the full sketch
after that conversation. Yeah. I'll even ask, like, tell me what you love about your business. Tell me what you hate about your business. What do you love about your team? What do you hate about your team? All those kind of things, you know, in the discovery. Because you got to get the full picture to know right? If I was just going to go hit the hammer on the train in one spot and fix the whole thing, where would it be?
Yeah.
You know?
Yep.
I love that story. It was like $1 for the hammer, $999 to know where to hit the hammer, you know? I can't help it. It just goes. I go with the story, the analogy.
I love it.
Comes from teaching too.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
When, you know, I taught special ed for 10 years. And when you say 1 + 1 = 2, and they look at you like, what? You're like, apparently I'm going to need to learn 7 other ways to explain that concept. And if you screw that up enough times and you start to learn, you're like, you know, it's leadership is like sports. They're like, they look at you and you're like, okay, let me try this again. And you just keep going. And I think that's how I've kind of built that quiver full of arrows when it comes to stories, examples, analogies.
I love that you mentioned that and kind of like bring it home as we wrap up. But it's like we go through life with all these experiences. Obviously, sports has played a major role in your life, but and teach all these things that kind of come into your life that puts you where you are.
Yeah.
They give you the experiences you need to be successful where you're at.
Yeah. I think I was just talking about this just the other day of like, for me to explain my story makes complete sense to me. But a lot of other people be like, huh? Like, you got there, how? You know, but to me, it makes complete sense. And it goes back to like, hey, you know, if you look at the timeline or the narrative of one person, super simple. But if you add one more person to it, it becomes infinitely complex. And I'm like, so if you're going to have a team, it's going to be infinitely complex. Your job is to simplify it, you know. But I think that being authentically you is so incredibly important. And it's a lesson that I've had to learn over and over again as an athlete, as a teacher. You know, like the way that I connected with my students was very different than any other teacher had ever connected with a student. But it was like how I learned how. It was and it worked for me, you know, and I think that leadership is very similar. I think business is very similar. I think life, like, be comfortable in your own skin because there's only one you.
It's the most important thing. You
know, and you're going to be better at it than anybody else, you know, and you've been given a gift and a superpower. So it's like, roll with it, man. It's going to be fun, you know, and there's going to be failures. You're going to learn along the way, but just wake up, be happy, and get after it.
Well, it's so cool because like going back, like when you were playing football, would you ever have pictured yourself being a business consultant? You know what I mean?
No, not at all. I mean, and that's the fun. You can look back and laugh and be like, I thought I was going to be a professional football player. I mean, I always say, you know, they say 15 minutes of fame. I had 4.5, you know. But no, after that, it was, we're going to teach and we're going to coach. And then, you know, tragedy hit when I lost my dad. And that took me for, you know, a whole nother journey, which was meant to be. And now that led me into sports mental game coaching, and it's led me into business. And now I've fell in love with the impact that we can have with business leaders and with small and micro businesses and what we're able to do and the impact and the trickle down and the cascading leadership. And now being able to show my kids, I mean, if you ask my kids to define work at 5 and 7, that would be completely different than how I defined what I saw.
Oh my God. Yeah.
You know, and that is like, wow,
Wow.
so cool. that, I've already done. Like I succeeded in that already.
That's so awesome.
When I look back, and then for my type of personality, we don't look back and smell the roses often. But you're like, man, Dad, you have a meeting, right? How long is your meeting? Dad, did you get money today? Did you, where's your leadership at? We pray for the business every single night. Like all those types of things. They're at the expo and they're helping me setting up and hey Dad, are you going to record this? Like all of those things. I'm like, you're planting seeds, man.
Oh my God. Yeah.
Like there's seeds that are dropping in there that are like, which one's going to grow? Well, whatever one we pour water on, and whatever ones we grow, and we're teaching hard work. And I had a meeting at 6 p.m. but I still made the game, so it's like all of those things. And that's the stuff that's important to me. That's leadership obviously is important, but that leadership at home, that is the most important thing in my life.
I love how it all comes together in the sense of, not telling people how to live, even from a leadership when you're looking at the businesses that you're working with, and it's not like just go do these things because I'm telling you to because I'm the boss.
Yeah.
It's the same thing with parenting. It's not just go tell, hey, you need to do this, this, and this.
Yeah.
Who are you, Dad, to say that? You don't do those things, right? Do as I say, not as I do. How often, do we hear that kind of thing? But to actually go along in life and show them the way. Like showing them not, to live by this example and what is possible, not just saying the words, because you're saying the words too, I'm sure.
Sure.
But then when they see the example, it all sets in.
Yeah. The words are just reinforcement.
Exactly.
They're going to do what they see.
Yes.
Right. Not what they hear. So it's like, even if I'm working out, like a lot of times I'll go work out and I'll come back and I'm home and showered and ready before they even get up, But it's like, I'll make sure that like my gym clothes are sitting out, like, and they're like, oh, did you go to the gym today, Dad? And it's like, oh yeah.
So they know you're
that kind
already
of thing.
getting
Or
up
I'll like, yeah, look at the video or whatever. So you just kind of like make sure that that's observable, or like, oh yeah, but we're going to do the, CrossFit Open and, in 3 days or whatever it is, like that kind of thing. But you want to do both, right? The words are more reinforcement to what they see. And that's important.
That's huge. Man, that's so awesome. And I love how it all ties in because it's again, the leadership at home, it's leadership in life, period. It's that communication. Yeah.
It's fun.
Dude, man, this has been awesome. I'm so glad.
This has been fun, man. Love it. Super powerful conversation.
Always, man. Always. We just not wait until like, I don't know, was it
200 more episodes?
200 more episodes. Yeah, exactly.
For sure.
Exactly. So it's so funny, actually. I'll give a shout out to Desiree Martinez.
Oh, yeah.
And so Desiree had reached out to me and we were having a conversation and like, she was asking about some different events to get involved in. So we were talking about that. And then she was like, oh, hey, I have a guy that I think would be awesome on your podcast. I'm like, oh, tell me about him. And she was like, oh, he does this and this and this. I'm like, what's his name? And she was like, Desi Mayner. And I'm like, yeah, tell him to call me. Like, tell him to shoot me a message. That'd be awesome. And there's like backstory. And she was like, oh my God, that's so crazy.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Desiree Martinez at the cast agency. They do great work.
Yeah.
For sure.
That's awesome. So it's so cool. And it's just like, during 2020, like I got really big into LinkedIn. Like I was like again, working with people all over the world. It was like not just being limited here. It was like building relationships with people all over. And I got in this group of like influencers on LinkedIn. And I learned from them. And one of them, her name was Tisha Marie Pelletier. And there was a group of like, there was 12 or 13 of us. And they all had way more influence than I did. So I was like just learning and growing my stuff. So anyways, this lady, Tisha, we built a great relationship and she had got a client that, crazy enough, that her client was literally in my co-work space. He was at Grit and Lavender. I didn't even know. She's like, yeah, I got this guy. And oh, by the way, he's at, like, he just said that I just told him about you and he said he's at your office space. He sees your company logo all the time. Like, that's crazy. Yeah. So she was coming into town. She's in Arizona. She was coming into town to meet up with her client and she planned this whole get together because she had some Michigan friends and she planned it. And Desiree was one of those people. Desiree and her were friends out in Arizona. Yeah. And they've been friends forever. And so it's just a small world and how the connections work. It's really crazy.
Yeah, it's pretty fun when you start to work remotely like that. You can spread your wings.
Oh, man.
And get some impact in some different places.
But we talk about just relationships and humans and how things connect. We think that, we're going to have this conversation with somebody and then, all of a sudden it ties home to somebody. There's been so many situations where people, like my worlds have connected.
Uh-huh. Yeah, I always make the joke about like somebody probably played some sort of softball or sports with me or my dad or one of my brothers or cousins or, all of that. So it's, the world gets small really quick, especially when you focus on people and relationships.
People in relationships. And I also find that like in the entrepreneur world, like when you're finding the right people, it's like you're aligned and you're on this, like, it's like the tuning forks. Like when you're on that same frequency, it's like you run into all these people that are like connected, and it's like, I'm not even amazed anymore. I'm just like, of course that's like, of course that's
it's confirmation.
Like, yeah, exactly. So it's really awesome. But man, I'm so glad that happened. I'm so glad we had you back on. So again,
absolutely appreciate it.
Appreciate you.